Hi, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with the Career Coach, our third episode. I guess we'll call it an episode. My name is Erica O'Toole. You guys have seen me on the past few, and I have my colleague Shelby Stein, and I'll give her a chance to introduce herself in just a minute. But I am an assistant director in the Career Development Center at CMU, and here today to just kind of talk to you about any questions you have, and then Shelby and myself prepared some questions as well to fill in some gaps. I'm a two-time CMU grad and have taught for the university and then have been working in the Career Development Center for about 5 years now. And I work with the College of Education and Human Services as well as our global campus students. And I supervise the First Impressions program and our outreach program. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Shelby to introduce herself.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm so excited to be joining my really good friend and colleague, Erica, today. I've been tuning in, just like hopefully you guys have, to the last few. And I think this is really awesome and gives us a chance to chat with you. So please leave us comments. I know that will help kind of guide our conversation today. But a little bit about me. I am an assistant director in the team at the Career Development Center at CMU. And I have a little bit of a different role than Erica, Eric, and Sophie, whom you have already met if you've been tuning in. I'm on the employer relations side. So basically what that means is coordinating employer recruiting, making sure that employers know about how awesome CMU students are, managing the career fairs with the help of an awesome team. So yeah, I think I'll bring sort of a different perspective, and I hope that you'll ask any questions relative to what employers are looking for, and we'll talk a little bit about that in our dialogue as well. But again, I'm super excited to be here. And when Erica and I were brainstorming some things to talk about, personal branding was one of them that we kind of came up with. I think especially going through what we're going through right now with COVID-19, selling yourself, selling your personal brand is super important. And I know I've sat in on some of Erica's wonderful presentations on the topic, so I figured having her here would be awesome. So let's kick things off there, if that's okay, Erica. And I will ask you if you can just explain what is personal branding.
Yeah. So personal branding overall, when you think about all these documents that you're handing into employers or the face that you're putting out there to social media, LinkedIn, any of the job application sites, it's really a brand that you want to keep consistent. So if you think of like an employer, so kind of more in Shelby's wheelhouse, but if you think of an employer and you think of documents that you see that come out about them or their social media, you see similarities all the time, right? Their logos are on it. You can tell they have the same kind of wording, the same color scheme. So that's what we're trying to create with personal branding of your own as well. So across your resume, your cover letter, your headings should be the same. That creates that good personal brand. And then when we're talking about social media, making sure that your LinkedIn also showcases your personal brand. We'll also talk a little bit about keeping your personal brand professional. So that's a really large part as well within social media, especially if you have Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, all of those other forms of social media, really keeping everything you're putting out there professional for an employer to see. And I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but I always ask you what kind of coffee you're drinking, and I didn't ask this time. So I am drinking a Biggby iced coffee with cream. It's kind of my favorite. I always get the caramel and white lightning syrup. So Shelby, if you want to tell everyone what you're drinking, and then if you guys want to write in the comments, I see Michelle's joining us. So hi, Michelle.
Oh. Hi, Michelle. I'm laughing because when Eric and I get to hang out together on campus because we work together there, I love her coffee orders and our Starbucks walks, and I miss them so much. So I'm so excited to hopefully sooner than later get back to that. But I just drink black coffee. I'm already 2 cups in today, and it's 10:30. So I tried to by 11 o'clock kind of peel it back, but yeah, just black coffee, nothing. And it's cheaper that way. So that's why I figure I can have a couple of them, right?
For sure. Okay, so Shelby, getting back to it, along those same lines of of the personal branding, especially since you're on the employer side, what are employers saying about it?
Yeah, so again, one reason why I thought this was super timely is this is something that I am talking to employers about. So obviously, this is an interesting time to be looking for a job or an internship. Probably not ideal, and we all know that. We're watching the news. But I think what is sort of unique about the situation is that we can really hone in on some of these things, right? Like maybe we have a little bit more free time, or again, like it is a little bit more difficult to find that dream job or that dream internship. But developing that personal brand is so, so, so important. And employers are looking for you online. I mean, we know that, right? So they're looking at your LinkedIn, they're looking at your Handshake profile, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But they want to see you. I mean, that's how they're finding you right now. So let's say you submit that application to an applicant tracking system. Once it gets through there, I mean, they will be doing their cross checks and checking your social media and looking you up on LinkedIn. So that's why, it's more important now than ever. And even moving into the fall, because virtual recruitment is going to be super, super important. And one thing I want to stress as we kind of work into things here, just how the Career Development Center can help you with that. So some of you may be watching this saying, okay, you say why personal branding is important, and I think I get it, but I don't know where to start. Erica, you say that I should have consistency on my resume and cover letter, but I don't even know what that means. So maybe next, Erica, you can talk about how the Career Development Center team can help, like what you as a career coach can help students with, and how you have those conversations and how they can make an appointment with you even today, because we're doing appointments virtually, right?
Absolutely. So definitely encourage you to schedule an appointment to talk about personal branding. It's so important on those vital documents that we think about, like resumes and cover letters. And really, it's just as simple as keeping consistency. So, if you're using a template, using the same template for resume, cover letter, any other documents you're putting out as far as the header goes. So maybe you've chosen to add some color if you're more in a creative field, which we don't suggest using a lot of color. So, but if you use a little bit of color, keeping that consistent, or, having a couple lines underneath your heading. It can be something very simple, but we just want everything to look the same. Font size, if you create your own personal logo, that's kind of a fun thing to do too. Putting that on your business card, possibly on some of those documents as well. But, there is such a fine line of how do we keep things, professional and traditional while still keeping a professional brand. And so I think that's where we can really come in and help you out a lot. And say, maybe this isn't necessarily appropriate for resume, but this would be great for your business card. And this is how we can connect it to the personal branding on your resume and cover letter still. So I think that that's really important. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, no, this is really great. And I think like a lot of people listening, we start to talk about these topics and, we don't expect students to know everything about this, right? Like that's why we're here and that's why we're here to help. And I just want you to, if you can, and sorry to interrupt you, go over how to make an appointment to talk about this, because I talk to students all the time who know the importance. They know recruiters are checking their LinkedIn, or they get a notification that a recruiter looked at their LinkedIn, and they want help. How can they do that, and where do they set up an appointment?
Absolutely. So on our website, and that's careers.cmish.edu, you will scroll down and you'll see this huge button in the middle of your screen that says Handshake. You just click on that, and that will take you to the Handshake portal. Now, when you go into that, you're going to sign in with your global ID and password. And then once you get to your main screen, you will click on Career Center and then Appointments. And then you can schedule with any of us, and that's based off of your major or topic that you're looking to explore a little bit more. We all have openings. So, we are more than happy to meet with you. We can go through Microsoft Teams. That's what we typically use. And then, if you're not finding something, just email us and let us know your needs, and we can work something out as well. So we're definitely here to help. And I see somebody put our website in there. I think it was probably Sophie. So thank you, Sophie. And hi, Mackenzie. Thank you for joining us. I saw you shared your favorite coffee with us. So a couple more things about how we can help you. A big thing right now, too, that we're seeing a lot of employers, really being receptive of are professional websites. So we have all kinds of resources on Handshake. I think we have about 8 of them for free website creation. And you do not have to be a tech guru whatsoever to create one of these professional websites. I don't think of myself as a tech guru, and I created one just fine. So the one that I've used is Weebly.com. I find that one very easy. You kind of just drag and drop, you pick templates. But what I did with mine is I created, because this is back when I was teaching, I created like a very simple teaching format. So, you know, really gearing it towards the industry you're going into as well is really important. And then also looking at your LinkedIn, making sure that that's still reflecting that personal branding. So keeping consistent wording that you're using within your other documents on your LinkedIn as well is really important. And then the other thing is really cross-referencing your different types of personal branding, right? So on your resume, having your LinkedIn address and your professional website as well, so that employers can go in and they can click on that. So I am going to share a question on the screen that we have coming in from Austin. Thank you for your question, Austin. So he asked, how can alumni get connected with CMU's Career Development Center as in regards to job search support? So great question. Alumni have access to our services for life. So that's kind of unique to CMU. That's a big reason that I think CMU does such a great job with the Career Development Center, is that we do offer these services for you as long as you need. So you could come back to me in 20 years and say, I need help with my resume. I want to do a career change. How can you help me? So Austin, what you would do, it depends on how long you're out from graduation, but you should still have access to the Handshake portal. And if for some reason that is not working, you can go ahead and email our office and we will make sure that you get access to schedule an appointment with us.
And our email address, and I'll ask Sophie to maybe drop this in, or we can post it after, is careers with an S at cmich.edu. And just sort of from the employer side of things, right? So yes, you have access to Handshake. That is where, you know, I encourage all of our employer partners to post positions, whether that's internship, maybe an entry role position, or that for an alumni, you know, who's X amount of years out, because there are a lot of employers who are looking for experienced folks, you know, whether that's 3, 5, 10 years of experience. I'm always advising them to post it there. And of course, use us as a resource. So, you know, if you have anything specific that you're looking for, maybe that's geographically restricted, or again, just based on what you're passionate about and what you studied, reach out to us, and we could honestly just have a chat about that and where our connections are, and if we can help you in that way. So Austin, I hope you'll reach out to us and we can set up an appointment and get the conversation going there for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question, Austin. Keep them coming. They're great questions. Okay, so Shelby, question for you. You know, we've really talked about all these different types of social media and that they're essential to professional branding. So LinkedIn, is it really that important?
Yes. Yes, it is. And I think what's really important to remember when we're having the discussion of personal branding, you know, a lot of people will give you different feedback. But I think what I would tell you, and what most of my colleagues would tell you, is quality over quantity, right? So some students think, okay, personal brand, I need the website, I need LinkedIn, I need this, I need that, I need a business card. But if they're all sort of done like not that well, or clearly you were creating it just for the sake of creating it, it could definitely hurt you more than it helps you. And I find that is often the case with the website. And again, I think that's why it's critical that you have some of those discussions with our team about, you know, is this right for my job hunt, what I'm trying to do? Can I do it well? And same goes with LinkedIn. You know, and it's really, really important to, yes, have a LinkedIn. So the answer to that question is yes, it's important. But to make sure that it's up to date, to make sure that it's reflecting your resume, there are no discrepancies. Because the last thing you want is to submit a resume, the employer's impressed, they go to LinkedIn and it's like total disconnect, spelling errors, weird formatting, no headshot or weird headshot, right? So I think what's most important is, yes, kind of having an awareness that these things should be part of your personal branding toolkit. but that you're putting in the time and the effort to make sure they're updated, and that they really are reflecting you in a good way. And I think, as we talk about personal branding, so is networking, right? So if you are using LinkedIn in the way that you should, or, could be using it, you want to make sure that you're networking in the right way. You're networking with alumni, you're communicating, you're sending messages. That's all part of that personal brand. And those are all things that we can help you with. Students often ask me, well, you came into the classroom and told me to use LinkedIn, but I don't want to send someone a cold message, right? I don't want to, that's weird to me to reach out to them sort of blindly. That's what those platforms are for. But again, thinking about personal brand, how can I, convey my message? What is my elevator pitch? That's also, in my opinion, part of your personal brand, to really convey your skills and your abilities, and why that relationship on LinkedIn might be a win-win, right? A lot of our alum are looking to give back, to have some conversation with students, and some of those conversations with students. And we often encourage students to use the LinkedIn alumni tool, which I believe you guys may have talked about before, but it's really just connecting with alum. Like the CMU alum universe is incredible. There are so many people across all different programs across the world. So as we think of personal branding and building that up, how can we communicate who we are in a way that, again, really sets us up for success? So yes, it's really important. And I do see that there's a question here from Michelle Erica. I'll go ahead and read it. After applying, how long should you expect to hear from an employer? What is the most common hiring process today, and how long? So I'll start, Erica, and then I know you'll speak to it too. I wish I had an answer for you, Michelle, that I knew was 100% accurate and correct and across the board the case, but there's not. So I think especially right now, so anybody who's looking right now or applying right now for positions, we're probably seeing incredible delays, and that's for a number of reasons. I mean, I'm polling and surveying employers usually bi-weekly to kind of gauge where they're at. There's a lot of hiring freezes happening right now. There's a lot of budget freezes happening right now. Positions are still being filled. It's just, the whole working virtually thing can kind of set things back. So I would say, it can take upwards of 2 to 3 months. I was just chatting with a student who applied for a position in the beginning of March, and is still in the interview process for that position. So it's important to stay positive, to follow up as appropriate. So that's the other thing. A lot of students are maybe a little bit tentative to circle back, but that is 100% appropriate. If it's been even like two weeks since you've heard, if you had an interview, you haven't heard anything, of course you sent that thank you email after your interview. But that's okay. I mean, circle back, ask where they are in the process. They'll have hopefully good insight for you. But right now, it's up in the air. Erica, do you have anything else to add?
I mean, just from personal experience, I can tell you that's absolutely, the case. Like, there's been times where, before I got this job, I applied to a bunch of places, and then 3 months later, I'm in this position and I get a call for an interview. Well, that's just how it happens sometimes. So, don't get discouraged. It's very easy to do in the job search. I know Sophie and I touched on that a little bit before. But just, keep going and know that there's something out there. It's just a matter of being patient and making sure that you're finding the right fit.
Yeah, and I think sort of more broadly to personal branding, right? If you're really building that brand and you have a strong resume, and you're meeting with us, we encourage you to apply broadly. And that's like, there are, of course, positions that, might be the perfect fit. And there's this one and you're hoping, and it's been 3 months and you haven't heard anything. But the one thing I'm telling students right now, especially if you're a current student or you're an alum, Chippewas adapt, right? Like, we know that we're learning the things in the classroom. We're having these experiences on campus that are setting us up for success above and beyond perhaps what we've studied to some degree. So I think it's important to kind of identify maybe some of those soft skills, those transferable skills. How can they apply to other positions? And I'm not saying send out 100 applications. That's certainly not it. None of us would advise you to do that. But I think especially in the time that we're in right now with COVID-19. We need to be just doing everything we can to set up our personal brand, to be confident in our application materials, and then really just continue to look, because employers are hiring at the end of the day. There are positions that need to be filled. There are positions that have been filled over the last few months. It's just a difficult time right now. So.
Yep. And actually, Michelle has another question for us. Thank you for all the great questions, Michelle. So she is asking, what info should you put in an elevator pitch, and do you have an example? And I'll take this one if you're okay with that, Shelby. So for elevator pitches, you really want about 30 to 60 seconds of information about yourself. And what we're really looking for, what an employer is looking for, is past, present, and future. Right? So sharing a little bit about each of those. So, past can be what your degree was in, maybe some previous work experience you've held. Present can be a little bit about, what you're currently kind of working towards, what your interests are, what your specializations are in. And then future are just giving a couple goals to an employer. So, towards the future, what are you looking to do? How are you looking to progress throughout your career? So that's what I would say for an elevator pitch. We have a really great worksheet actually on elevator pitches that Shelby had shared with me once. So after the Facebook Live, I will try to link that document in the Facebook comments, because it's a really great way to just kind of like write it all in and then form this elevator pitch. The one thing about that is make sure you're keeping it professional. So I've had people tell me about their cats, about their dogs. And while I love to hear about that because I love animals, I have my cat sitting next to me currently. You really want to keep everything professional. So career related, academic related, but keep everything within that professional realm.
Yeah, and I'll pop in there too, Erica, on the elevator pitch. So, in conversations that I have with employers, and typically I'll check in with them after a career fair, how did it go? The students that make, or alumni that make the strongest impact are those that, walk up to the employer. And again, this is going to be different virtually, right? But come to them with a very, I don't want to say well prepared, because we also don't want students to be scripted, but they know how to articulate who they are, what their goals are, and most importantly, the ones that employers say do the best job is that they really tune into what the employer wants and why it's a good fit for that employer, right? So at a time when hiring is difficult, you might have frustration. You need to be thinking every single time you apply, every single time you talk to an employer. I'm going to use the example of Ford, who's a fantastic partner at CMU. Going to Ford saying, you're working on at the end of your elevator pitch, and I'm interested in XYZ, and I know you're working on this project, and I know that you did this for community development, and I know, tying in some of those things to show that you did your research. This is a competitive market. That's just the reality. So how are you proving that not only are you a good fit, but the company and you're passionate about what they're doing, and you'd be able to jump right in and be a fantastic, contributor to the team. So that's the other thing I would advise. As there will be things that will be in your elevator pitch that will be the same across the board who you're talking to. But the more we can tailor it and do our research, the better. Whether that's an in-person conversation, a message on LinkedIn, a virtual career fair. So those are all things that we certainly can help you with, but just to kind of keep that front of mind as we're talking about elevator pitches.
Yeah, and along those same lines too, doing your research, I love that you touched on that, Shelby, because that is so important. Every job that I've applied to, had interviews for, I've researched things, not just like their basic mission statement and looking over the front page of their website, but really going in depth. What are they doing maybe in the community, if it's a really community-based company? And then relating that back to yourself. Maybe I see that you have employees do one volunteer opportunity a month, and I'm very into volunteering. Here's what I've done. Connecting yourself to that somehow is such a great way to showcase your skills with that company.
Absolutely. And it looks like Austin has another question. So
Yeah.
I'll read it, Erica, and I think you
Perfect.
might be best to answer. It looks like, if I have a specific job that I'm looking to apply to, can I work with the Career Development Center team to tailor my resume? So maybe you can talk about that
Yeah.
and the importance of that as well.
Absolutely. So, resumes are so ever changing throughout the years, right? So, it used to be that you kind of listed all the things that you've done. You had one blanket resume handed into employers. But nowadays, the thing that really sets you apart is tailoring your resume. So I'm really glad you asked this question, Austin. Looking in the job descriptions, pulling out keywords, using some of the language that company uses on your resume is so important. And that is absolutely something we can help with. So if you bring in a job description and your resume to us, we can help you pull out those keywords, figure out what works best. Just to kind of touch briefly on the idea of the applicant tracking system, that's where this really comes into play. So a lot of employers are using those. And what that does is it sends your resume through a machine, and then it picks up on job description and resume and how closely you're matching. So, if you're not tailoring your resume every time, there's a chance that it might never get to human eyes, which is really scary when we think about how much work we put into those resumes. So we do have a really great website, JobScan. So Sophie, maybe if you can share that, or I can put it in the chat afterwards. But it's just www.jobscan.co, so not .com. You get 5 free a month, and that's one that I really like to use because what you do is you upload a job description, you upload your resume, and then it tells you how closely you're matching and if you can make it through those applicant tracking systems. So it gives you suggestions you can edit in real time to get your percentage higher. So just a really great resource to do that. But again, absolutely bring it into us too, and we can help you with that process. And that would just be through either email or appointment. Appointment's usually best.
Yeah, Austin, I'm really glad you asked that question. And I'm really glad that Erica touched on ATS. I think that is where, recruiters are telling me like that is so important because again, to Erica's point, if we know, which we do know, 90% of the jobs you apply to are not being first looked at by human eyes. It's the computer. So making sure that not only are you using those keywords that Erica talked about that are directly matching and reflecting the job description, but also there's a way to format your resume. You don't want a lot of funky text boxes and graphics because again, that can be kind of skewed in the system. So if this is something that you've thought about before, maybe this is the first time you're hearing it. And again, you're not quite sure if your resume would be ATS friendly. That's something that I know Erica and Eric and Sophie are fantastic at knowing that. So they'd be able to help for sure.
Absolutely. And one thing I just want to touch on, because we have about a couple more minutes here, and if you guys have questions, please keep them coming. We're happy to keep answering them. But one thing I want to talk about is keeping your social media professional, right? So what are things to avoid when you are looking at this idea of personal branding? And I'm going to touch on it quick, and then I'm going to let Shelby touch on it as well from the employer standpoint. But I'm just going to use an example that I use in every presentation I give because it just really resonated with me. So my freshman year at CMU, I had a professor in one of the introductory classes go through and spend 5 minutes searching each of us on Facebook. And they pulled the worst picture they could find of us and put it on the whiteboard above in the classroom. And it really showed me how easy it is for anyone to find anything on you, right? So the important part here to really remember is keep everything professional, work on your privacy settings. There's sites as well that will help you with that process when you do like a Google search and things like that. But it's just so important that everything is professional because personally, I know when we do the hiring process, the first thing we look at after resume and cover letter is social media. So we look at LinkedIn, Facebook, anything else that's out there. So just making sure that you're really showcasing good professional brand, but then also keeping everything professional.
Yeah, in sort of in the same vein, I know, Erica, you've gotten questions, and I have too, of students that feel this pressure to link Facebook and Twitter on their resume. I've been asked that before. I certainly would not advise unless, you have a designated professional Twitter account, right? Like, this is something that really only are, your views on whatever it is you're studying, or again, it's very professional. So yeah, we get asked that a lot. I would just say, again, it's been something that I think most of us have heard over and over again. But social media is a footprint that is left for a very long time, especially now. I think we're realizing that to be true. So yeah, just be smart. Make sure you're cleaning things up, especially as you're on the job market. Hi, Rebecca. Oh, my friend Rebecca is here. That's fantastic. So awesome. So yeah, I mean, be smart.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing. Be smart about it, right? Just kind of know what's out there about yourself. Google yourself. I mean, that's the best thing you can do for this. I Googled myself the other day, and I don't know how many of you have heard of the Crim Race in Flint, but I found my results from the Teddy Bear Trot when I was like 5 years old. So you can literally find anything. I mean, people can see my running time when I was 5. So if I can find that, I can find anything, right?
Are there pictures too? Because I'd love to see a little 5-year-old Erica.
There's not. And I did skin my knee that year too. So you'd probably see me bawling my eyes out, which could contribute to the slow time. So don't judge on the slow time there. But definitely something to keep your eye on and just be aware of.
Yeah. Well, again, this would be a great time if you have any last questions to drop them in right now. But really, just to wrap things up, as we continue to do these chats, of course, we'll hope to bring you some sort of topic, at least so we have a guide to our conversation. But if there's anything that you or friends, or you're having these conversations that are kind of common questions, let us know. You can, message us on Facebook. You can email us. We'd love to make these conversations really relative to you and maybe the questions that you have, or some of the issues you're experiencing, and just how we can help. But that's the great thing about social media, right? So we hope to continue to bring you these great topics. And thank you to Erica. I mean, I know you've been our steady face since the beginning of these, and I'm sure folks love seeing you and all of your wonderful feedback. But our contact information, I know we've been dropping it in here, but we also have information of us individually on our website. So if anybody needs to get a hold of me specifically, whether that's employer related, maybe you're looking to really get in with a specific employer, or again, work in a specific area, look me up on our contact page, and feel free to shoot me an email. But Erica, I'll hand it off to you to wrap things up as well.
Absolutely. And same goes for me. Obviously, my contact information is up there as well. And even if it's just a small question, feel free to email us. We're always here answering our emails. We're on Facebook on our Career Development Center page. So if you message us there, we should be able to respond pretty quickly to that as well. But we just appreciate all of you joining us. It's so good to share coffee with all of you virtually. It's good to see you, Shelby, your face in this crazy time when we're all virtual. And it's so nice to see everybody in the chat. What great questions we had today. So we really appreciate it. So, any other questions, feel free to email, and we will see you for our next Coffee with a Career Coach. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.